And here to discuss the 4,000-person caravan that is headed toward our Mexico-U.S. border, Thomas Homan, former acting Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director, Fox Business contributor. Tom, good to see you. Let's first, why in the world can't the Border Patrol stop these people entering our country, period? Well,
listen, I listened to the beginning of the show. William Lodge, that's 100% correct. You're 100% correct. The president is 100% correct. And he's been correct from day one on this whole issue. I mean, you can like it or not like it, but he's absolutely correct on this issue. The Border Patrol is because Congress had failed the American people. The Democrats in Congress have failed to address the loopholes that are causing these caravans and people to come to this country and claim asylum. I've been up on Hill numerous times as the acting director. The commissioner of the Border Patrol has been up there, of CBP, the head of CIS, the Secretary Nielsen has been up there numerous times telling Congress, here's the loopholes that's causing the illegal immigration a swarm coming through right now, especially the people of the caravans. They have refused to fix it. They have, you know, it's at the point, it's disgusting because this president is right. They're resisting, they're pushing back on anything he wants to do. They don't want this president to be successful. And what really concerns me, as the guy's been doing this for 34 years, they're putting their own political hatred for this president, their own political ambitions ahead of that of public safety and national security. It's disgusting at every level.
I couldn't agree with you more. And let's remember, too, there are corporatist interests. They are represented by the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, the Koch brothers, Wall Street, who are insisting upon cheap foreign labor, and that means illegal immigrants coming into this country. They're aligned with the left on this. They're aligned with enablers of all sorts, which run the spectrum of our political parties.
Look, as a law enforcement professional, I don't care. I mean, if there's truly a need for lower-level labor, then fix the law, bring more labor in through a temporary visa. There's a legal way to do this.
That's so cumbersome. It's so difficult. It's, you know, it would require honesty, integrity, and first an allegiance to the United States. And frankly, we're dealing with divided loyalties here, whether it be the establishment right or whether it be the radical Dems of the left. We are watching a giant effort to this caravan, for example. Is it an accident that it's showing up just before the midterms? Not at all. This is all of it orchestrated, and frankly, the American people are being told to go to hell, as they have been for basically the last 20 years.
But, Lou, it's still up to Congress. You know, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Your number one responsibility is to protect this nation. We're a sovereign country. Every Democrat, every Republican would want to secure that border. There's no downside.
You know who would laugh at you if you said that, Tom? Chuck Schumer would just laugh at you. Tom Donahue, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, would laugh at you, and you know that, and me.
Well, let me tell you something. I know more than any of them people about immigration enforcement. Right. I've done it for 34 years. I have stood on that line with the Border Patrol agent, as a Border Patrol agent. I went to a Border Patrol Foundation dinner last night and met the families of fallen officers that have died on that border. If you don't want to build a wall for President Trump, if you don't want to fix these loopholes for President Trump, how about doing it for the men and women who strap their gun to their hip every day and defend this nation and put their lives on the line? It's about time Congress does their job.
Tom. They don't give a damn. They really don't. They think they're bigger than the country. They think they're bigger than those agents and officers who've fallen in the line of duty. You know, collateral damage for their interests that are so special.
But Louis,
and they own, by the way, you know this. They own half of the Capitol Hill in the people who reside in fancy seats in the Senate and the House.
But you know, Lou, who does care? The American people. And the American people need to, shows like yours, they need to listen to what's going on. Because November's coming. The midterms are coming. If the Democrats take the House or Senate, you think it's a big problem now? Hold on tight. So the American people care. The American people want a sovereign country. The American people want a protected border. So the American people need to have their voice heard. And I'm glad you invite me on shows like this. I'm glad you're fighting this fight.
I'm glad we have a president.
I'm glad we have a president that protects this country. We got a president that cares about border security. He has
but Tom, I've got to say to you, I am thinking about all the Border Patrol agents I worked with over the course of my career. All of the times I've been on the border. I have never seen a Border Patrol agent in my career ever step back and let people simply come across that border. We're watching Border Patrol agents now stepping back. They're being told not to engage. They're being told not to apprehend. They're being told to evade, and that is wrong. And I understand. U.S. Code 1158, Section 8, Title 8. This is ridiculous. If indeed, as a matter of national security, we're told that the President of the United States cannot, with an executive order, demand that the Border Patrol agents take control of that border, there's something very, very wrong. And you're right. We have a horrific challenge in front of us to take control of this country once again.
Well, Lou, I respect you, but I got to disagree with you on that point. I think there's 20,000 American patriots down there on that border, and they're not stepping back from anything. If they're being told to step back, I've never heard that. I met with a lot of Border Patrol agents last night at this foundation dinner. They're doing the best job they can in a very difficult circumstance. Yeah. Again, they are there defending this nation.
Well, you call it doing the best job they can in the circumstances, and I wouldn't argue with you. The fact of the matter is the circumstances are lousy. And the fact is that we have to be smart enough and rational enough to step up and take charge of consequences. This is not something that we should be just witnesses to, observing. No. This is a time for men and women in the Border Patrol, in Customs and Border Patrol, in ICE, throughout Homeland Security to be charging to find a way to get the border secured instead of laying back. And that's what I'm talking about, Tom, and I understand all the strictures on all the people in uniform. But I do not understand a Department of Homeland Security that is a fiction in its very name. Well,
again, I think the men and women Border Patrol, men and women Weiss, and look, I've been with the Secretary.
Look, we're not going to get away with this, okay? Let me say something to you. I am for the men and women of the Border Patrol and everyone who serves this country. Irrespective of whether it's a military or whether it be in Homeland Security, you name it. But I will tell you this, I do not respect anyone who allows this country to be overrun simply because of a bunch of nonsense when they should be securing. This is a matter of national security. That border should be secured, and the Chamber of Commerce shouldn't be in charge. And with that, Tom, I get to say this is your opportunity for the last word, and we're out of time.
Well, again, Lou, I think the men and women in uniform are doing the best job they can in a difficult circumstance. I've been with Secretary Nielsen. She's been on Hill many times asking Congress to close these loopholes. The blame belongs with Congress, not the men and women of law enforcement. And I'll tell you, there's two things.
Let me be clear. I'm not blaming the men and women of law enforcement, Tom. I am blaming the Department of Homeland Security, whose responsibility it is to secure this country and to secure our borders and our ports, and they're failing miserably. And it's got to stop.
But what I'm saying, Lou, is I've been with the DHS. They are trying to get Congress to change these laws. Their hands are tied.
I'm not being clear. We don't have time to get the Dems to do what's right. We got to get rid of the Dems November 6th. But meanwhile, we've got to take charge of those borders, Tom, and you know that.
And there's two things that can be done right now, real quickly. The president needs to ask Mexico to stop this caravan on the southern border and turn them around. So we need to engage Mexico. Number two, we need Congress to change. We need them to make some enactments to change the asylum fear claim and move that threshold higher. And we need to fund ICE, the detention beds, so when they do get arrested, they don't have to release them.
Tom, we appreciate it. You said ask who?
Pardon me?
You said the president
the people at the highest levels of the U.S. government need to be talking to Mexico and tell them to stop this caravan on the southern border. They're not allowed to transit through Mexico without a transit visa. Mexico can stop this.
I guess that the joke isn't completely established, but the government of Mexico doesn't give a damn what the United States wants, and the president is exactly right. Until he demonstrates, until the United States demonstrates that they're not going to put up with the nonsense any longer, Mexico will not act like a responsible, mature nation on our southern border. They will instead act like what they have to this point.
But we have to try.
Well, we have to try. Hell, we have to do. And I know you agree with me about that, Tom.